Early nominating contests build momentum for 2024 contenders seeking the White House. C-SPAN is the place for political campaign enthusiasts, with unfiltered coverage surrounding the early primaries and caucuses, as well as speeches from key battleground states. Whether you're interested in your state's race or want to follow all of the political events, you can get immediate access to what the candidates are saying, plus nominating results in real time with the free mobile app, C-SPAN Now, or watch live on the C-SPAN networks.
In 2005, two brothers hit the road to chase demons and fight monsters. You know, like you do. After 15 years, they made television history and built a community of dedicated and lasting fans.
Sure did.
I'm Rob Benedict, and I played God, a.k.a. Chuck Shirley.
Yeah, you are, and yeah, you did. And I'm Richard Spade Jr., and I played the Archangel Gabriel, a.k.a. the Trickster, a.k.a. Loki. I also had the privilege of directing a bunch of episodes of the show.
Have a few more AKAs, why don't you? Jeez.
A.k.a. you're a jerk.
Though we've been involved with the series for years and multiple seasons, we never sat down and watched the entire show.
Oh, that's not true anymore. Now we're deep into it. We are going episode by episode and diving in with the folks who made it to bring you an insider's point of view and some great behind-the-scenes stories from the writers, producers, crew, and actors. And you're getting our pure, honest, unfettered reviews.
And along the road, let me tell you, we're becoming fans.
Buddy, we are super fans.
We've heard you saying it for years, and we finally get what all the excitement's about. This show holds up after all this time and deserves to be watched and rewatched.
We will be hitting on some spoilers, so consider yourself warned. And if you have any angry emails you want to send, please direct them to Babo.
Thank you for joining our journey and listening to Supernatural Then and Now. Hey everybody, this is Rob Benedict.
And I am Richard Spade Jr.
And we're talking about Season 4, Episode 15, Death Takes a Holiday.
Or as we like to say, Death just took a holiday because Christmas is behind us.
Yep, and it's the new year.
And now Death is hard at work. Back at it, clock it in.
Be sure to follow the podcast on YouTube and TikTok at SPN Then and Now.
Why?
Because we're starting to post more clips there.
Ooh, more clips, like video clips?
Yeah.
Audio clips?
All the clips. Hair clips.
Of our hair?
Mm-hmm.
Very exciting. Yeah, if you love the podcast and you want to see more, go follow us at YouTube and TikTok. You'll be glad you did. Spread the word. SPN Then and Now. Robbie, why don't you summarize the episode for us, please?
Sam and Dean respond to a call from Bobby and head to Graybull, Wyoming to investigate why people have stopped dying. They attempt to summon the ghost of Cole Griffith, the most recent person to die. However, at Cole's gravesite, they are ambushed by Alistair. Dean gets knocked unconscious, but Sam is immune to Alistair's power. Sam uses his powers against Alistair and vanquishes him out of the possessed body. Alistair retreats. When Dean comes to, he asks Sam about how he's immune to Alistair's powers. Sam lies and says he doesn't know. Dean suggests they solicit the help of the psychic Pamela Barnes to help them cross over into the astral plane to question Cole, who hasn't crossed over yet. Pamela performs a ritual and releases Sam and Dean's spirits from their bodies. They locate Cole and ask him about what's going on. Cole tells the brothers that a Reaper arrived but disappeared after some black smoke started to show up. Tessa, the Reaper that appeared to Dean when he was on his deathbed at the beginning of Season 2, arrives to escort Cole to the other side. The boys lie to Cole to get him to reveal the location of the black smoke, the funeral home. So Sam and Dean tell Cole that he'll be able to stay with his family. They ask Tessa to not take Cole until they figure out what is going on. Suddenly, black smoke arrives and Tessa is gone. Sam and Dean in spirit form head to the funeral home and find it covered in blue Enochian sigils. Inside, they find the Reapers trapped by symbols. The brothers get trapped by being encircled by an iron chain. Alistair appears and kills one of the Reapers. He's trying to break another one of the 66 seals. Sam and Dean use their ghost powers to bring down a chandelier, breaking Tessa's trap, allowing her to escape.
That's a bummer for her trap.
Meanwhile, Pamela Barnes is back at the motel keeping watch over Sam and Dean's bodies. Suddenly, she's attacked by a demon. She's able to bring Sam back, but it's too late. The demon has stabbed her. Sam exorcises the demon. Elsewhere, Castiel appears to Dean and confesses that it was he that sent Sam and Dean on this mission, not Bobby. He tells Dean that due to what the boys did, the angels were able to prevent the seal from being broken and captured Alistair. Castiel also explains to Dean that he is different. Dean then helps Tessa convince Cole to accept his fate and cross over. Dean, now back in his body, finds that Pamela Barnes is dying from the stab wound. In her last moments, she whispers to Sam that his powers are not good, no matter what his intentions. Dean asks what she said, and Sam is silent.
Oh, my God. All right, let's review this son of a gun. Good review there. I mean, good summary there, Robbie. Really
yeah,
solid
thank you.
Stuff.
Thank you.
As an episode, I really like this episode, man. I thought it was, I love Alistair. I love Christopher Heyerdahl. Man, he is so gosh darn
So
good
he's
as an
great.
actor.
He's great. So this is the third incarnation of Alistair that we've seen. So in chronological order, it was guy from Shawshank, then the guy in one scene at the gravesite, and then Christopher Heyerdahl.
Man, we should know the Shawshank guy's name because he is awesome. So as a review, I loved this episode. I thought it was super great. I love Christopher Heyerdahl. I love the story. I love the kid drifting around trying to figure out his, what death means to him and watching his mom.
I thought that kid was a really great little actor, that guy.
A great actor. I thought the mom, who really didn't have a ton to do, was also great.
Great. Heartbreaking.
I just thought it was all, I thought when the Reaper sort of takes the boy out of there, it broke my heart. And also, I got to say, I was really struck by, this is just a personal thing.
Mark Ralston, so good as Alistair. Yeah.
And he's also so good in Shawshank Redemption.
Yes.
I had a friend of mine a couple years ago who died of an asthma attack at his house.
No way.
And didn't die, like had an asthma attack, couldn't get to his inhaler, couldn't get to 911 in time. He dialed 911, but by the time they got there, he was brain dead. And so he's been on a machine for years. And on a personal note, it struck me that's what happened to that kid.
Oh
my
God.
A lot of times these things feel like TV, but if you know anything, if you have anybody who's had that kind of experience of anything you've ever watched, anything, it's like, it kind of pulls you out of it for a second. I was like, whoa, man. And then it really, that also feels like a legitimate way that a young boy could die, accidentally going out without his medication, and it's too cold. And it just broke my heart. I thought it was a really well written scenario and really well shot and performed scenario.
Yeah. And I just, I kind of enjoyed them being in that other realm.
Yeah, me too.
So explain to me exactly, when Castiel appears at the end, what exactly is happening?
I don't know. I got a little lost there. And I also didn't understand why Dean was mad at him, because he'd gotten rid of the guy. So I'm like, why are you sour about that? Right. I don't know. I was didn't quite pick up on that detail at the end, but it didn't do enough to damage my fondness for the episode.
So Alistair's now dead.
No, they captured him or something.
Right. So they captured him.
So that's where it is. So I just thought it was a really great episode. I thoroughly enjoyed having Lindsay McKeon back as the Reaper. She's really good.
She's really great. We did a convention together years ago, and
she couldn't be nicer.
Yeah,
her welcome back. Nice to have
she's
her.
Good.
Nice to have the character of Pamela Barnes back. That's an interesting character. So overall, I thought it was great.
Yeah,
I am going to give this not a perfect Stapleton. I'm giving it a Kenny Rogers, and that's just saying I thought it was really, really, really good. I just reserved, because a little bit of the confusion at the end with Castiel, like the ending wasn't seamless to me in that regard. So I'm saving the Chris Stapleton for the perfect 10s, and this is a 9.5. So
right,
I'm going Kenny Rogers in this bad boy.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I'll do 70s Kenny Loggins, not full on 80s Kenny Loggins, which is really where it started to glow a little bit.
Right. So you're going 70s Loggins?
Early 70s, really before he made a name for himself.
Like Loggins Messina Loggins?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you on your review. I'm not totally, it's not all there. It took me a while
loved
to get
it.
into it.
I mean, absolutely loved it, but you know what I'm saying?
It's not perfect, but it's really, really, really great. Just the casting of that boy, that's great casting. Really good casting of that boy. And the smoke effect is always so good.
It's great.
And that struggle when Pamela Barnes is trying to whisper the Latin into their ears to bring them back, but the demons that's got her is pulling her back. I thought that was a great struggle.
That was cool. It was a cool fight. I know her character's blind and then sort of getting beaten up, using her skill set as an intuitive spirit reader, but also not being able to see. It made for a really interesting and sort of hard fight to watch in sort of a
Right.
cool TV way.
Right. And as soon as Alistair's captured and people could start dying again, the blood just starts pouring out of her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's really trippy.
Yeah. All right.
All right, let's get to it.
Let's get to it. Returning guest Steve Boyum was a frequent director of Supernatural in its first 5 seasons. He's a legendary stuntman and TV director, having worked on such legendary films as Predator, Apocalypse Now, and Lethal Weapon. Recently, he's been directing episodes of The Boys, Gen V, and The Old Man, all shows that we love. And here's our interview with Steve Boyum.
Thanks for doing this again.
Oh, you're welcome, man. It's been too long. I was trying to think of the last time. It's almost 2 years ago.
Really?
Year and a half.
Oh, wow.
Well, it was summer before last.
Well, I guess it feels not that long ago because I saw you while striking. I saw you at the big picket event.
We drinking.
There may have been some daytime drinking. I don't want to point any fingers, but there was definitely some, some daytime drinking. But before we get into our conversation, are you off to something else now? Or is the Old Man going? Is it like, what's up?
Old Man, they're still going to shoot in January.
Cool.
I finished the 2 episodes or 2 of the episodes I was supposed to do, but now I'm back on Gen V.
Oh, Gen V. I didn't even know Gen V officially got a pickup. So they did.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, so they talked me into producing, directing it this year. So I'm now kind of almost full-time in that, except not in Toronto.
All right, well, let's dive into this. Robert, shall we? Are we ready? All right.
All right, so we're talking about episode 15, Death Takes a Holiday. Now, at this point, you're a friend of the show. Do you get options on the episodes you direct, or do you get assigned a script? And if available, you take it.
Yeah, it's I think more of an assignment. Because they book us all at the beginning of the season,
Right.
And they don't have all the scripts. Now, I've been suspicious for a long time that I tend to get the episodes that I end up getting on every show I do seem more complicated than the rest of the episodes that are around it at the same time.
Right.
So I feel like they'll tend to write towards whoever I've always taken it personally that they just don't like me and they're going to make my life miserable. So I having never read the original versions when they were, just out of the writer's room, I suspect, with all directors, they'll tailor a little bit, when they know who's booked.
Right.
And, kind of go, okay, well, this guy's really good at this, so we'll put more of that in it. And
yeah, that's what I see from my angle. It's like it feels like they go, ooh, this would be a good episode, for Steve to direct, or this is a good Rich episode, or whatever it is.
Yeah, but I mean, in my experience, I've just been a number on a calendar, and whatever script comes up on that date is me,
Right.
Well, I think that's the case too with pretty much all of them. And then, they can go, okay, we can, add or subtract bells and whistles that they might be able to, that the particular director can blow.
Yeah, somebody can ruin.
And Bing.
And so this is your 3rd episode that you directed. You come in, and a lot has happened since the last episode you directed. What was it like? How do you get caught up? Because back in these days, it was just DVD, I guess, right? How do you get caught up on what's happening?
I don't remember how we got caught up then. That's a good point. I don't even know if it was DVD. It might have been VHS tape in this day.
Jeez, yeah.
Age.
Yeah, probably.
I know.
But, in this season, I'd done, I think, the Origins one with the 2 young Winchesters, or with,
right.
So I think I kind of knew where the season was going. And then Kripke always, uploads you on what was and what was to come. This season, we didn't have Kim. And in season 2, when I, came in on the show, Kim was really there to kind of help you figure out what had been before and where it was going.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think I relied a little bit more on the direct line to Krip. But, and this one, I think this one kind of fell into the envelope of, I think I'm right about this, but I think Kripke's original Bible for the series that he was interested, the story that he was interested in telling was a 4-season thing. And when CW loved the show over the years and they didn't want it to go away. So Eric kind of expanded his original story arc out to 5 episodes.
Right. 5 seasons.
So I think this was one of them that, we would always joke around. I think you guys did this as well, that, this wasn't Monster of the Week, but it was, one of those that, it had a through line to it, and that you're seeing Sam's, powers start to take over with him. Right. And you're revisiting Dean, when he met Death before, and, the Reaper.
Right.
That's, Tessa.
Yeah.
So, the through line was there, but it wasn't really one of the, it could have been a standalone, really, and to a degree.
Yeah, yeah.
You're, bringing Alistair back in. It was the through line of the show.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I thought it was interesting. You speaking of that, like these sort of elements of that show. Rob and I are trying to watch them in order, so we're trying to follow suit. But for the fact that you brought the Reaper back, Lindsay, and you use flashback to sort of remind us why we know her. It did feel kind of standalone-ish. You know what I mean? I know we brought back Pamela Barnes. I know we brought back the Reaper and Alistair in a different form. But the story was cohesive enough to not feel like if you missed last week, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and that's how I felt. When I rewatched the show to get ready to do this, because it's been so long, which has really been fun to go back and look at what we were doing back in the early 2000s, and I was in my daughter's editing room and she was editing, and she's a fan of the show as well, and she was kind of listening to this episode, just the sound of it. And she's going, I don't remember this episode. And frankly, I didn't remember it until I saw it. And then so many great memories came, flooding back with the thing. And, it was just a great cast overall. What was interesting was, casting the Alistair version that,
right.
Was Chris Heyerdahl.
Right. Yeah.
And you guys remember, we'd go over across the bridge and go to North Van to Corrine and Heike's place, and we'd sit and listen to auditions. And, this one really could have been, all the auditions, good actors, but reading Alistair in a way that wasn't, some good, some bad, but very like, okay, well, that was the words on the page, and performed well. But Heyerdahl came in the room and put such a different spin on that. I forget who I was with. I might have been with
Jim Michaels.
I don't know if I was with Singer. I was with Jim Michaels, actually. And he and I are sitting behind the monitors, and, our jaws are becoming slack. And when we go to look at each other for confirmation, we're both, jaws down to the floor with this guy. It's like, really? Well, I guess
Yeah.
That's the cool way to be this guy.
Yeah. Would you think he was doing, do you think he knew what Mark Ralston had done with that same, because it felt like a through line from what Mark Ralston had done.
I'm not sure he did. He may have.
It really made sense that, they both of them sort of had, Heyerdahl was really doing a bit, but it really matched kind of what Ralston had done when we previously had seen.
Yeah, it did seem like that.
Well, he may have, and then he tricked me. I thought it was something really original. And
No. I think he puts his own spin on it too. It's a little bit of both,
he had a bit of Nicholson to it.
Yes.
It was.
Yeah. And there's, completely. I really love what he did.
In a good way, very theatrical.
I thought he was fantastic. I got to say, I remember Heyerdahl from years ago, from watching one of those episodes previous to Rob and I doing this podcast, and he's just been a standout in that role to me from the get-go.
Yeah, I think Crip latched on to him, which was a good thing. I actually cast him shortly thereafter on Human Target to do something completely different, and he did a completely different thing. But
oh wow.
And I'd forgotten about Chris until I just rewatched this episode again. So I want to drag him.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, I got to put that guy on my short list. And by the way, I'm sure if Chris Heyerdahl listens to this podcast, he'll be like, you forgot about me. Hold on now. I'm right here.
It happens. It happens. And so it's a great, but the casting in this episode is great. I mean, the child actor Alexander Gould, who played Cole, was great. I thought the casting of him was fantastic. He's kind of spooky, has that look. The dead kid who can't, leave yet. I thought he was fantastic.
He was already an established professional actor. He'd done a bunch of stuff. So he was, I remember him now thinking back on it. He had the scenes with Jensen and Jared and teaching them, how to use their powers as ghosts to actually interact with physical objects. And it was like dealing with the two guys. I mean, it wasn't like dealing with a kid. Now, you always have to remind yourself it's a kid, so I can't swear and whatnot, around them,
right.
or you're not supposed to.
Right.
But no, he was like an old soul, but just, God, he was so haunting and so good.
Yeah.
And, the one scene that I'd latched onto when I first read the script, and even before we cast him, he was cast in LA, and was the scene in the when he's in the closet with Sam.
Yeah.
The idea of having him be in total shadow and black and just letting a slice of light catch his eye when he chose to show it. And, for an actor to understand at that age, especially, okay, this is the world that you can come into where we're actually going to see you. So choose your moments into that light that, or make the scene as powerful as it can.
Yeah.
And dealing with, I don't remember, he must have been 12, 13, 14 years old at most, but he got it, and, with a lot of adult actors, that don't understand lighting and camera and everything else, you're then having to kind of step them through it, going, okay, on this line, lean in.
Right.
But I remembered that he, and it was interesting in those days too, as kind of an aside, for Sarah LaDoucier, our DP, in that era of the speed of camera film, I think we shot on, it might have been on film. If not, it was early generation. I think we shot on film on this episode, but to carry the exposure into the shadow and then having that light be part of it. I noticed it looking at it yesterday that, in this day and age where you can crank your ASAs up to, 5,000, you're going to carry that darkness. There's not going to be any breakup in it at all. Yeah. And you can really see the exposure struggling to kind of balance the two. That scene was, I thought was really cool. And I think it was set in a closet. I'd love to take credit for thinking of the idea. I'll take credit for thinking of the idea of the slice of light. I'll go that far. But no, the kid was amazing. And the cast across the board, Pamela, who goes by, Thunderbird now, which was a cool name. She's fantastic. Yeah. And, I think that was the first time I'd ever, with her, now that I think about it, to choreograph a fight scene with someone who's not sighted. Right. I remember that to be kind of, okay, well, let's figure this out. So rehearse with your eyes closed.
Yeah, I know. Weird.
What it looks like.
Yeah, that's a great scene too, when she's struggling to whisper in their ear and being pulled away.
Ahoy, Rich Spade here. Hope you're enjoying the episode, but we got to pull over for a second for some messages. Hey, this is Richard Spate. You know what? It's 2024. It's a brand new year, and I bet you made some New Year's resolutions, and I bet one of them was to eat healthier. Well, you can get cranking on that resolution right now, my friend, with Factor. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, the prep work, the cooking fatigue. I'm getting tired just talking about it. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan, and veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you will have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart this resolution off right. Forget frantic lunch prep and rush dinner making. That stinks. Factor's 2-minute meals, yes, I said 2 minutes, are your secret weapon in the new year. You get to fuel up fast with restaurant quality meals all delivered right to your door. It doesn't get any easier than that. And Factor now offers loads of snack options like breakfast, smoothies, juices, snacks, and more to keep you going no matter what's on the schedule. So I know what you're asking, Rich, how do I tap into this Factor magic? You head to factormeals.com/SPNTAN50 and use code SPNTAN50 to get 50% off. That's a lot off. That's code SPNTAN50 at factormeals.com/SPNTAN50 for 50% off. Make that resolution happen now and make it happen at a discount. Fantastic food that's healthy and delicious and delivered right to my door. Now that is how you start the new year off right.
Early nominating contests build momentum for 2024 contenders seeking the White House. C-SPAN is the place for political campaign enthusiasts, with unfiltered coverage surrounding the early primaries and caucuses, as well as speeches from key battleground states. Whether you're interested in your state's race or want to follow all of the political events, you can get immediate access to what the candidates are saying, plus nominating results in real time with the free mobile app, C-SPAN Now, or watch live on the C-SPAN networks.
Thanks for listening. Now back to the episode. You had a visual effect. Well, I think it's visual effect. I guess the girl jogging through the guys is visual effect. How did you handle, because I know it was a time before things were simple in visual effect land, and right. You put them in the other world, right? You put them in the spirit world. Part of that is look, I assume, of like LUT and, color, temperature and lighting. But then you also had the gimmicks of the actress jogging through the guys and
right, or putting his hand through.
Well, that and then when the kid Cole shows them how to fight and hit each other,
right,
and also too speaking about the end was, I think it was the first. That's the first time I ever had the chance to do the same character in the same scene, which is when after Pamela's put them to sleep and Jensen wakes up and goes, well, that didn't work. And then he looks back at himself, and Jensen's in the foreground.
Yes.
And Jensen's in the background.
Right.
Which is, really just a lock off, a split screen, basically. And, you put one in and then put the other. And, so that was the first time I think I did that, especially with Jensen. And then we did it again in another episode that I think was at the end of season 4. And then we really took it to the limit when we did the end. Right. So, it's still the same process now. If you put two people in the scene, you still have to do, a pass with both characters. But, now with techno cranes and motion control has become a little bit more affordable. So, it's nice if you can get the camera to move within that the composition, the two elements together.
Yeah.
But this one was kind of, and likewise when they go in and they go into the funeral home, and they basically get the drop on the guy, the demon that they first confront. Everything we did, it's like, okay, well, let's do a pass with one, then do a pass with the other guy swinging at air, and then it was, if nothing else, it was a bit time consuming.
Right.
It also feels like a little bit like the old way. I mean, you meaning if you end up with no money at film school, that's what you do. You do that and then put them together.
And it works.
Yeah.
You look at this episode, even today, being on a big visual effects show, with Gen V now, it's the same basic principles. Yeah. Now you have a little bit more. Your canvas gets a little bit bigger, and your palette gets a little more full of paint, but you have to resort. You're working from the same, like the Bible for screen direction. There's a way that this all has to be done. Now you're still doing the same thing. So and it was fun. It kind of goes to Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula, and in that at least I think what he I've always heard Francis talk about is that he didn't want any modern visual effects in it. So everything was forced perspective sets. And he did things the way that they'd always been done in the past. And, I mean, it's fun. And you can still do it and it still holds up. So
it really works in this episode. I mean, you really buy
Everything.
that they're in this other world.
At no point, I mean, if we weren't having this nerdy conversation, Rob, I don't think anybody would notice that it was dated in any way. Like, it doesn't feel...
No. The same as when you see a movie now. I mean, it's the same kind of thing, and the like ghosts trying to move objects, it's
right. I mean, you're still doing it with wires and practicals,
Right.
Of course, now you add in flying characters and it gets a little bit over the top for me.
Sure.
But, the old techniques still work, and they worked then and they work now. I mean, it goes back. They were doing this back in the 20s, I'm sure, in some form.
I feel like there's a conversation somewhere of some like old timer being like, in my day, I hung from a harness from the goddamn rafters. Didn't even go to lunch. And you kids are standing on a green screen.
And hit the goddamn ground.
Exactly. You know what I said?
No
I said, let's go again. That's what I said.
Yeah. No pads. Just rub dirt in it and go back.
Yeah.
I actually died and I was a ghost.
I'm dead now. Yes. You can't hear me.
So what about the Enochian symbols that are on the funeral home? Do you remember that shot?
Yeah, I do. I mean, that was...
was that painted or projected?
No, that was all put in by visual effects.
Wow. Oh, wow.
I believe. That's a very good question, because I was looking at that and I went back and watched it twice yesterday going, God, did we paint that or did we put it in visual effects? And I'm starting to think that Hayden put that in.
Huh.
You're referring to Ivan Hayden, who is running visual effects.
But Jerry might have, Jerry Weineck, production designer, might have painted that. I don't remember. Huh. It's a very good question.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you the answer.
Well, either way, if they, it was very realistic looking. If we can't tell, if we don't know how it's on there, it looked real.
Yeah, it looked real. And I tend to think it might have been a VFX ad.
Okay.
And I think that the art department did the artwork, to give a reference. And now I'm going to have to look at the thing again. I'll figure it out. Next time we do one of these, I'll have an answer for that since we're bouncing. I tend to bounce from episode to episode and forget which one we're supposed to be talking about.
Sure.
Yeah, the one scene in this, I think it was one of the only real, now that I look back on it, it's the only, certainly not the only scene I've screwed up. But when I watched it, I didn't really get when the demon put the chain up so that the boys couldn't get into the room any further. And I knew it made sense on the page, and I thought it made sense when I shot it. But now that I look at it, I was sitting there watching it yesterday going, where's the sharp implement?
Man, that would have been a real bummer.
Yeah, I mean, how many directors do you guys get to interview to tell you about their monumental
Well,
subjects?
I will tell you, a lot of people we asked to be on this podcast say, I'd rather die than be on your podcast.
That's true.
Very few say yes and then change their mind mid-episode.
Wait, now why was that a up?
It didn't make, I knew it made
Doesn't make sense.
Made sense on the page. And I thought I told the story in a way that visually made sense. And I think there was either I missed a shot or I didn't do something wide enough to really, I think I was more into the action of the moment and trying to keep it really energetic and tight.
Right.
And looking at it again in my advancing years, it makes me believe more and more that you kind of do need to. It may not be the most exciting shot for 20 frames, but to give the audience a little frame of reference in the room and where you are. And that one, I think I got a little too carried away with the jauntiness.
Well, let's go to the audience. Rob, you're a new viewer of this episode, as am I. Were you confused by that beat at all?
Did it make sense to you?
Now that we're talking about it, no, I don't think it did make. I mean, in my mind, I thought it was something supernatural about the chain being up meant that they couldn't get through to him. Like when they draw the salt on the floor.
Well, he says iron,
those
so I thought it meant they couldn't cross iron.
Was it?
They couldn't
Yeah, because I guess ghosts can't go across iron. Right. But then there was also the demon's hands, or were they Dean's hands? I couldn't figure it out, burning on the chain. Now, I'm hating myself for even bringing this up because I'm sitting here just thinking about my shortcomings. And,
Welcome to our world.
But now let me say this is where actors save your ass, because the performances were so good it didn't really matter where they were.
No,
they all could have
right.
been sitting out in the park.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and God forbid Tessa's going to have the seats put across her neck.
Yeah.
We didn't need that. So
yeah.
the drama overtook the bad filmmaking
Sure,
pretty
yeah.
quickly. And
Yeah, I get you get the gist of it, and it's still tense.
I didn't. I mean, it tracks for me. Now, of course, I hate it. But when I watched it originally, I thought it was great.
Yeah, I never had a problem with it.
I guess there comes a certain amount of weight when you're the guy taking out characters that have been established and are well liked. For example, in this case, Pamela.
A good death scene, you can't beat those for an actor. And I think maybe too that, good actors kind of process it that way. It's like, okay, well, financially, maybe this is not the best thing, but as an actor, if you just look at it purely as that, it's an opportunity to really give a great performance.
Right.
A death scene done well is pretty memorable.
And that's a good one. Well, that was a good, in terms of death scenes, it was a good one. It was an honorable death scene.
Yeah, she was great. And I thought that the boys' reaction to that was really, really good. I really liked that scene a lot. And,
that's a great scene.
And it kind of propelled the whole story with Sam's, new blood and where he was going. So, it kind of left the audience with, okay, where's this going next? Which is, I think, really good.
Yeah. That was really great drama, that scene.
And I'm surprised too, looking back at these shows, when we do these things, how good we were. And this is across the board for, for everybody that was on it and directed it and acted in it. I mean, the way we shot that show holds up today. I mean, it's just great.
100%.
And,
yes.
Yes. That's, has to do with, Serge and all the camera team and the art department and, everybody. It just was for little shows, when you think about the budgets that we made these things on, they were big shows. And, and you guys well know what the budgets were on them. We're not going to give this on air, but and
it was well cast too. I have to say, from an actor's point of view, it just time and time again, the guest actors are really fantastic.
Yeah, rarely is there a clunker. I mean,
No.
and I think all the directors on the show were good enough to kind of really make sure that there was enough material that, if you had to help the actor out in post, you could. But a lot of times, I mean, the casting, I think, Kripke especially has such a good sense of acting and actors. And, because ultimately, in those days, everything's running. Ultimately, Eric's going to approve it.
Right.
So, we get to pick, I love with episodic directors in the casting process, generally the rule is, okay, pick your top three. And then, they end up going back through casting tapes and you go, well, they weren't, the one that we cast wasn't even on my top three list.
Yes, indeed.
What's that saying about what they think about me?
What you say about the look holding up too is really true. And obviously that's the good work of the creative team. It's also a little bit of, there might be a luck of the draw thing in that it was shot in 16:9, aspect ratio out of the gate, because, anything that had any of that 4:3 stink on it is toast now. Like it immediately dates it. You go back and watch Party of Five. I don't care how big a Scott Wolf fan you are. This thing was shot a minute ago, and part of that's the aspect ratio. It's just, it also helps that the guys are wearing flannel and denim. That talk about a fashion statement that doesn't age.
Timeless. So the end of the episode features a tribute to Kim Manners. Were you part of that conversation?
Yeah, and I didn't know where to land this in our interview, whether to lead with it or finish with it. But when we shot, and Kim was a really dear friend to me for many years. I'd known Kim for 30 years before he died, and Kim was diagnosed with lymphoma when he was 32. So he figured he was dying then. So I'd been through that with him then when he was an AD at that point at that time we were doing Charlie's Angels, and I was a stunt guy on it, and Kim and I were, really good friends. So I kind of got through one death with him, and then the son of a bitch cheats death and lives large for another 30 years. But when we were doing the opening scene with Sam, it was the tease, the cold open, that location, and the interior of the diner when Dean is putting on the jukebox, and then they sit down and they talk about the people are dying in this town, or nobody's dying in this town. And then I think it was the back alley scene with Dean and Tessa and Misha Castiel. That day, Kim had been sick and in the hospital at this point for, a number of weeks. And he called me. And that night it was in North Vancouver, and unseasonably, it snows in Vancouver. We all know that. But it was snowing so hard, it was just piling up and in this back alley. And we'd called in snow plows and everything else and trying to clean this while I was inside doing the diner scene, so that when we went outside, we at least had somewhat of clean streets. And Kim called me on the phone, and this was 2 days before he died. And I'll never forget the phone call. And he goes, Boyum, this is the end of the ride for me. I'm hanging up the spurs. He goes, I don't think I'll be around much longer. And we had that conversation. This is, as I'm watching snowplows and looking at my watch and worried about the schedule. And I'll never forget that night for this. And it brought back the memories when I was watching the scene. And then, of course, the tribute card at the end. But it was kind of like, Kim created the look for this show. And, it really was Kim's show. And he, raised those two boys from, teenagers basically into their young adulthood. And a lot of the rules that they learned as actors that they still use. I think today, I just worked with Jensen last year on Gen V. And, he influenced so many people that, as sad as that phone call sounds, and if the audience, I don't want to, turn this thing too dark, but it wasn't. In a weird way, when I hung up, it was, and then Kim passed, in the next few days. But it kind of wasn't sad. It was more like, I'm leaving. It's yours to do now, and it was kind of like not a passing of the torch, but it's a fond memory, not a sad memory for me. So, and to see the season dedicated to Kim, a lot of people in the audience don't know who Kim is because the credit cards go by and they see the name. But, to know what a genius the little fucker was, and just Kim Manners as a character, he was just so amazing. Yeah, that's my sad story about Kim, but it wasn't a sad story. It was a really cool story.
And
one I'll never forget.
Awesome story.
It's what makes this episode, and then watching it again, realizing that this was probably the most impactful for me personally episode because of that day. And, and frankly, I think, we were all sad, but everybody on the show, it was like, if your coach, on an NFL team ends up being in the hospital and you guys have to play for him anyway. And, it's like with Michigan and Harbaugh when they suspended him from being on the field. And then it became us against the world for the team, and they go out and kick ass and, win every game. So, that was kind of the torch passing to all of us, I think, that Kim gave us. I think I talked to the two boys about that day after Kim called. It was sad, but sweet, in a good way.
Yeah,
So,
that's a very lovely story. And how poignant that the episode is about death.
I know, right?
Yeah, poetic.
Yeah, now that you mention it, it is. That's really makes it even more thought provoking and kind of cool.
For sure,
it's amazing.
For sure,
it is.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe it inspired us to make even a better episode talking about death, and maybe we understood more of the, crossing over kind of thing.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Steve, thank you so much for coming back and talking.
That's a great
to us.
conversation.
And,
I love that, what you had to say about Kim.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was the right place to do it at the end of the interview.
Yeah.
That was a good place to tell it.
It's always great to see you and chat with you and swap stories, buddy.
Yeah, let's do it again. Let's do it on the next one that comes up.
Absolutely, we will.
We'll have you back to talk about the end, as you mentioned.
Yeah. I look forward to that one. That had some tricks in it we can get into.
Good.
All right. Okay,
Bye,
guys.
Steve.
All right, Steve.
Cheers. Have the best day ever.
You too, pal.
Yeah, you too, buddy.
This is Jared Padalecki stopping in to say hi and let you know that we've got to take a quick break. Thank you for supporting Supernatural then and now. And now, back to the show.
It was great, and what a great interview! It was. It's always great to see him. And
oh my gosh, I loved hearing from Steve Boyum. What a ball of energy and knowledge, and just great guy.
Yeah. Well, we'll have him back to talk about the end, and then maybe
we're definitely going to have him back
episode
because he's a.
But he's fantastic, and it made me honestly it made me like this episode even more. I mean, I already liked it, but just to talk to him about it and how poignant it was in the history of Supernatural in terms of Kim Manners, losing Kim Manners during this time. And just what a great guy.
So great.
What a great guy.
And now it's time for the part of the program that you and I call mythology. Mythology! No, wait, that's the wrong high voice version of mythology. It should be mythology. There you go.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, Reaper, and this might be a surprise to you, is short for Grim Reaper.
I had no idea what the Reaper's first name was.
Yeah.
Do you fear the Reaper? Because you shouldn't, I guess is my point.
Okay. If you say so.
Look, you want my advice? Don't fear the Reaper.
Grab a cowbell.
Just don't fear the Reaper.
So, Mr. Reaper, or Grim, is a cultural and symbolic figure that has evolved over centuries and is often associated with death.
Pretty much always, I would go ahead and say. Often associated with death or snack cooking. No, it's always death.
The concept of personification of death has roots in various cultures and religions throughout history.
In ancient Greek mythology, Thanatos was the personification of death. In Roman mythology, the counterpart was Mors or Letum. These figures were often depicted as winged beings, emphasizing the swift and inevitable nature of death.
And I wonder if Thanatos has any link to Thanos.
I wondered the same thing, that character in the show.
In the show, in the,
movies.
Avengers. During the Middle Ages, the Black Death, bubonic plague, ravaged Europe, leading to a heightened awareness of mortality. This period saw the emergence of the dance macabre, dance of death, in art and literature, where death was portrayed as a skeletal figure leading people from all walks of life in a dance symbolizing the universal nature of death.
During outbreaks of the bubonic plague in Europe, doctors wore distinctive masks with long beaks filled with herbs. By the way, those masks are so creepy looking.
So weird.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
These masks were believed would protect them from the disease. The traditional Reaper's robe is thought to be reminiscent of the robes that religious figures of the time wore when conducting funeral services. These masks and robes, combined with the association of death from the plague, contributed to the image of death as a skeletal figure. The traditional scythe is an apt image taken from agricultural practices of the time. Harvesters used scythes to reap or harvest crops that were ready to be plucked from the earth.
I don't know if I knew that.
Ew and grody and ugh.
Huh.
I know those beaks are creepy. That much I do know.
Yeah, really creepy.
The creepy beaks.
You know what? I think it's just time to just move on to some fun stuff.
So you gotta cleanse our palate here. It's time for fun facts. Fun facts.
The name of this episode is taken from the 1934 movie Death Takes a Holiday. In it, Death takes human form and falls in love.
Even though Sam and Dean are in spirit form, at times you can see their breath when they are outside.
I noticed that. It's cold, cold Vancouver days. Snow on the ground. Yeah. And
even spirits are freezing.
Yeah. Like a woman is running and she runs through them,
Right.
They're breathing. breathing
It's
in.
awesome.
Well, this was fun.
It was great. It's a good one, man. Really good stuff in this episode. Really interesting and heartbreaking. I was moved when that little boy got transported to the other world by the Reaper. I got choked up. I thought it was a really well done episode. A lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And unique, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it felt like the first time we've seen those two dudes together in another plane or another existence. And
Yeah,
it's not. It's one of the earlier versions of it, if not the first.
It definitely felt like a different world, but really cool. Really, really cool.
Really well done.
I like that kind of thing. And they portrayed the whole ghost thing so well, too. So good job, everybody.
Yeah. High fives all around.
Yeah. And we'll see you next time.
Yes, we will. This episode of Supernatural features Jared Padalecki as Sam Winchester, Jensen Ackles as Dean Winchester, and Misha Collins as Castiel.
Guest stars included Thunderbird Dimwitty, Christopher Heyerdahl, Lindsay McKeon, Alexander Gould, and Mike Dopid.
Death Takes a Holiday was written by Jeremy Carver, directed by Steve Boyum.
Editing by Nicole Baer, music by Jay Gruska.
Executive produced by Eric Kripke and Robert Singer.
This episode originally aired on March 12, 2009.
This episode of Supernatural Then and Now was hosted and executive produced by Richard Speight Jr. and Rob Benedict.
Produced by Stephen Hine, written by Stephen Hine and Haida Holscher.
And edited and associate produced by Trey Booty.
What's up, man?
Music provided by Tim Wynn.
This episode was recorded with the help of Sonic Fuel Studios.
This podcast is from Story Mill Media.
Follow the podcast on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok at SPN Then and Now.
Become a member of the podcast at www.patreon.com/SPN Then and Now. Hey, team podcast, keep recording for a second. I want to share something with you guys. It just came out in the trades that David Nutter, director of the pilot of Supernatural, is going to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award from the DGA, which makes him only the 6th director to ever receive one of the Guild's top accolades.
Wow.
That's freaking
cool.
phenomenal.
Great.
It'll be on the 76th Annual DGA Awards ceremony on Saturday, February 10th, 2024, but that just popped up on the DGA feed. I was like, whoa, that's awesome. That's really cool.
It's great.
Rob, you want to try to eat more food while we're doing our intro? You got a mouth full of food. He's like,
I was doing my Bing Crosby impersonation.
Did Bing Crosby eat obsessively during his work with Bob Hope? I don't recall that. I didn't know Bing Crosby had an eating disorder.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, everybody. I'm Rob Benedict.
And I'm Bing Crosby.
Hey, be sure to follow the podcast on YouTube and TikTok at SPN Then and Now. Go look at your clips.
You're a hell of a salesman, Robbo. Now I want to go.
No, really, there's fun extra stuff. We got video, we've got clips.
Audio?
We got audio. We're really we're clipping along.
Are we sure we know what's there?
Castiel also explains to Dean that his is different.
His what?
I don't know.
Story Mill Media.